So recently I wanted to shift focus towards Star Wars. I've already talked about how it's one of my favorite things, but Disney makes it incredibly difficult sometimes. I think that's why I was a little hesitant to get into watching Andor. When the show first came out, I watched the first 2 episodes, I think, before I kind of just wasn't interested. I mean, on paper, this show doesn't sound all that exciting, if you think about it. Look at this compared to Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? You get a series dedicated to a character that most people love, and it's supposed to follow Obi-Wan after Order 66 and how he's dealing with that. Most everybody was really excited to watch this. Look at Ahsoka. We get an entire live-action series following a character that most people really loved from the animated series. The Book of Boba Fett, a series following Boba Fett years after the original trilogy. And then you got Cassian Andor, who we watched die in Rogue One, and now we get his backstory and what made him become a rebel. It shouldn't be as interesting as the rest of these shows. So why is it so much better than the rest of these shows? It doesn't make any sense. Star Wars has never looked like this. Hands down, Star Wars has never felt like this. Now, my only real complaint about this series is what I've already said. The first 2 episodes, they're not the best. There's nothing really wrong with them. It's just, it's slow and it doesn't immediately hook you, or at least me. It didn't immediately hook me, and there wasn't much of a payoff until episode 3. When episode 3 comes around, it kind of wraps up the first arc that Cassian goes on. And when I got to that point, something clicked and I was like, oh, that's what this show is. And I just never seen that before, so I wasn't really expecting it. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much of anything. Most of what I've heard from Andor was, yeah, it's good, but it doesn't really feel like Star Wars. To me, that wasn't a very good sell on it, but that's the point. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. The Star Wars we are used to does not look like this. Immediately, the way that we're introduced to this character in this show, Cassian kills 2 people. And yeah, it's Star Wars, people die. But people don't really die like this. See, our man Andor here, he's on a mission. He's trying to figure out where his sister is, and he's starting to get messed with by these 2 Imperial officers. And they kind of get into a confrontation. Andor murders them. And in any other Star Wars show, yeah, the main character kills 2 Imperial officers. Okay, add them to the body count. But in this show, it snowballs the whole story from here. It kicks off the rest of the story, and it all stems back to this point. These 2 character deaths are treated very seriously, and that right there is the key thing to this show. It takes it serious. Now, there is one thing that was spoiled for me, and it was this scene where Andy Serkis's character says that I can't swim. And when I very first saw this, my immediate thought was that this is a joke. Like, I imagine the scene played out a little like this. These characters are escaping a prison, and they get to a point where they have to jump into a body of water, right? And then when they get to the end, Andy Serkis's character says, I can't swim. And it's treated as a joke. And then everybody, like, just the typical Disney humor is what I was expecting. This moment was heartbreaking. Like, I'll touch on this a little bit later when we get to that point in the story, but this moment was treated with respect, and it makes me wonder, why isn't everything being treated like this? When you're watching Andor, everything feels like it matters. Everything feels very tense, very grand, and that's what good writing looks like. That is what these shows on Disney Plus are lacking for the most part. I want to compare to a scene from the recent series Ahsoka. Mind you, I didn't hate Ahsoka. You have Ahsoka who retrieves this hidden artifact from this ancient tomb, whatever. And when she finds it, she realizes that it's a map of some sort. and she needs to find Sabine Wren to decipher it. She does find Sabine Wren. Sabine wants to take it on her own, and Ahsoka tells her, no, don't do that. It's not safe. Keep it here. Sabine ignores her, takes it, and she deciphers it. Wow, she opens it. Then Sabine gets herself jumped by these droids and this absolute baddie, and then she's stabbed. But in the next episode, she's totally fine. It doesn't matter. She got stabbed, but okay. She throws a band-aid on it and she's all right. You don't get that from Andor. Rarely does Disney Star Wars feel the weight and the tension. Disney Star Wars has so many fake out deaths that I typically don't care when a character gets killed, because it's like, they're gonna come back. Like, I don't care. They've trained me to feel this way. So when I watch Andor and I see a character get killed in a way that I've never seen in Star Wars before, then there are genuine moments where I don't know the outcome and I feel extremely tense. None of the characters in Andor that died in season 1 do I feel like might come back in season 2 as a new enemy or something. The show is treated with a level of respect that hasn't been seen with Disney, and it's incredibly frustrating that this isn't the standard. This isn't what Disney is just trying to achieve. It just happened to be something that they put out. Like, visually, the show looks million times better than anything else on Disney Plus. The cinematography looks beautiful, just the lighting and the coloring. It reminds me of when I watched Rogue One for the first time, and I always remember the scene of the Death Star from the planet and just the absolute mass of the Death Star, like the scale of it. This is what I want to see from Star Wars. I want Star Wars to look this good going forward. The volume has its own issues. Don't get me wrong, it's fine. It looks okay for the most part, but there's nothing that stands out in anything like The Mandalorian or Obi-Wan. I'm actually not sure if they even use the volume for Andor. I'd be surprised if they did, because it just looks that good. For me, especially the second arc of the show, where Andor goes on this little heist journey where they're basically breaking into a Imperial compound, and I guess the plan here is to rob them. All of the outdoor shots just look amazing, and TIE fighters seem absolutely menacing. Actually, the entire Empire seems pretty menacing the whole time. I especially love when we get to see different points of view, when the story kind of branches off and we start following people who are in the Empire and we see their side, and we start following Mon Mothma and her story. Again, stuff that we've never really seen before in Star Wars. Like, I had no idea that I wanted to see Mon Mothma's complicated marriage and the amount of pressure that she's put under, having to lead this double life of being on the Senate and also trying to fund the rebellion. And it's that way with a lot of characters. What's absolutely brilliant about this show is how we start the show focused on Andor, and as we're introduced to characters, we start branching off in other stories, and we follow their stories, and they're all handled really well. There's never a time where we branch off to another character and I'm just like, can we focus on what we're trying to do here? Because everything is treated with respect. The writing is good. Again, I don't understand why this is not the standard at Disney. It's crazy to me. And I feel like more people need to be talking about it. Like, I never feel pandered to. I feel like they trust the viewer to work a lot of stuff out on their own. We never really need to over explain things or just have like extremely weak themes. Like, this is a mature story that follows a guy who lives this selfish loner survival type of lifestyle, and we explore how he gets to the point of giving his life to fight a tyrannical empire. And it's extremely compelling through and through. They really doubled down on what Rogue One was trying to go for. You know, I think about the speech that, oh god, what's her name? Jyn Erso, right? I'm probably wrong. I keep thinking about the speech that she gives when she's trying to hype up the rebellion. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, this is what you do. You give a good speech, and then all of a sudden everybody's ready to die for this cause. But you don't see that really in Andor. There's a specific character that he has these very strong beliefs. He starts sharing his beliefs with Cassian, and it's really thought-provoking, just the things he has to say. And it definitely doesn't feel like somebody just wrote down, inspire the people to fight for good. Somebody put a lot of thought into the writing here and what this character had to say and what he believed. Like, just based on his conversation with Andor, you can kind of figure out who this character is and where he comes from. And he became one of my favorite characters until he passes away in the show. And like I said, all of the deaths have a lot of weight to them. Now, this specific character, when he dies, I almost didn't even believe it when I saw it. My jaw literally hit the floor because it's again something that I've never seen in Star Wars. Essentially, during their getaway, this character happens to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he gets crushed in between two essentially pallets of the payload, and they kind of wedge him in between, and you don't know if he dies or if he's just like extremely hurt. And they get him out, and you're kind of like, okay, is he all right? But the absolute pain and terror in his face when it happens, and he realizes that he can't feel his legs anymore. Again, it's all treated so respectfully, and like, it isn't joked about. It's a serious moment, and when that character does eventually die, you feel like you actually lost a character that you care about. And then when you hear his words at the end of the season played back, there's just a certain weight to it. And I think this level of mature storytelling is what we need from Star Wars. Because at times I did forget that I was watching Star Wars. Aside from the setting, aside from the references, the, Empire, sometimes when it's just focused on Cassian and whatever journey he's on, whoever he's with, sometimes you do kind of forget that you're watching Star Wars. Like, it could just be another science fiction adventure, which to me is perfectly okay. Some people think that that's a problem, but for me, it was nice. Like, that was the point. It's supposed to show you Star Wars like you've never seen it before, and that's exactly what it did. Like, if there's a point that I need to get across, is that this is Star Wars like you've never seen it before. I really want to give this another watch because I think it'll benefit greatly from multiple watch throughs, which is something that I can't say about any of the other Disney Plus series. Like, I'm not eager to go back and watch Ahsoka. And as I'm thinking about it, there isn't a better character to focus a story like this on. Cassian Andor being the character that we shouldn't really care about too much. So I think going into this show not expecting much is the best possible outcome, because if you watch the show fully, you leave feeling like I did, and I'm extremely excited for Andor Season 2. It just shows that you don't have to bring back these legacy characters and ruin what the character stands for. You can create new characters. I think that this show has a lot of potential, and I hope that Disney doesn't just scrap it. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. I absolutely loved the show. I'm going to watch it again, and I'll see you guys till next time. Peace out.